Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford Files, Season 4, Episode 15, The Gang at Don's Drive-In. Written by James Crocker and directed by Harry Falk. The episode begins with Jim trying to sell encyclopedias door to door, which is of course a ruse to gain information on someone, which doesn't go well. We then cut to a returning Mills Watson playing Stan Collier, attempting to solicit money for his political ambitions from a business associate. Collier then gets a call from a work colleague saying that an author named Jack Scowron was asking questions about him. We then meet Mr. Scowron, played by our Columbo connection, Anthony Zerber, who happens to be the man currently employing Jim. They are old friends.
Did you ever get Bill Simpson to give you my 2-week severance after I left Carpet Town way back then?
Before Scowron hit it big with his first novel. Attempting to become the next Steinbeck, his new novel is going to be about a 1963 high school class from a deprived LA neighbourhood, and what has become of them in the intervening 15 years. Jim takes him to meet someone from the school, but that doesn't go well.
All right. Hey, hold it. All right, cut it out. Get off of this boat. Oh.
And later that night, Scowron sticks him with the dinner bill. So Jim does his best to cut ties until he sees two guys trying to assault Jack, and get some bruises for his troubles. There's quite a lot going on in this first act, but none of it really adds up to much. We don't know exactly what's going on with Collier, other than it appears shady. We don't know why Scowron is fighting with a stranger, and we don't know why two strangers fight with him. None of it adds up to much more than crumbs of a story. We do get some great character work from Zerber though, being a pain, a coward, and a freeloader, but also something of a helpless case, whose ego is not matched by his work ethic, and he clearly has something to hide. At the hospital, we find out one of his secrets, that he's an alcoholic whose heavy drinking is going to cut his life very short, unless Jim can convince him to turn his life around. And while the ethics of a doctor telling all this to Jim, a relative stranger, is entirely fictional, the way they deal with the issue of alcoholism is very sensitively done and realistic.
Now, one thing you have to remember, Mr. Rockford, you're not going to save his bacon. He has to.
Jim presses Scowron for answers as to why he was set upon, and while he tries to weasel out of it, he eventually confesses that maybe some of the people he's looking into are involved in serious organised drug trafficking, which Jim hates, but having an overdeveloped sense of empathy, particularly for old friends, means he agrees to help out a little more. And, as it turns out, he knows who Collier is.
He's a local real estate agent.
That's Stan Collier.
He isn't into drug smuggling himself, apparently, but might be good friends with the people who are. It's not long before we find out that Collier, Bob Aitchison, the man he was shaking down earlier, and a woman are in cahoots, and it was Aitchison who dispatched the Hurt Squad. Separate to this, Jim identifies the woman as Jeannie Rosenthal, a minor celebrity in LA. While Jim goes to pick up Rocky, Jack gets drunk and kidnapped by the goons, who wait around to ask Jim some questions and go a couple of rounds with both the Rockford boys before taking off. Jim goes to Dennis about the kidnapping and is astounded by how effectively he springs into action.
Spasado, write this electric and take it. I want you with me. I'm going to need you. But get me a status report on Finkel and Lamont.
I'll punch that into the desk so the black and whites will have it right away.
Lankowski, notify the FBI.
Until he doesn't.
Sarge, call just came in from Newberry Savings and Loan. 3 men with automatic weapons has sealed up the place.
Scramble all our robbery units. Tell Finkel and Lamont to meet me at the bank.
In a brilliantly comedic twist on how the cops fail to act whenever Jim brings them a crime. All of this might be too late for poor Jack, though. From the fairly leisurely pace of the first act, part 2 is all story, as we find out almost everything we need to. Scowron is actually writing a book about the illicit drug trade that developed amongst some GIs after Vietnam, and the cabal of old classmates running the legitimate and illegal sides of the operation. Having found this out, they want him silenced. Jim, initially working as a favour for Scowron, is now in deep, as he doesn't want to see his old pal die from alcoholism or indiscretion, and the fate of Scowron is entirely up for grabs, with Jim completely unaware. It's a surprisingly natural ratcheting up of the pace, as Scowron had all the information the plot required all along, but needed a figurative push to give it up to us and to Jim. Whether he suffered a literal push just goes to increase the tension, as, while he's a pain, we also now feel quite a lot of sympathy for the character, and don't want him to see him meet his ends at the hands of a drug-running gang. The tension continues as Jim goes to speak to Jeannie, unaware of her exact involvement, but knowing what to say to set her off.
You know, for someone who started out to be a beautician, you have really come a long way.
We then meet a fourth player in this ring, Freddie, who also has a legitimate front, and Collier lets us know the school friends made a pact together on a yacht some years before.
And that night on the yacht, each of us got the break of our lives.
The story becomes even more clear when Jim searches Scowron's belongings, and as well discovering he's broke, with writer's block, he finds out that Scowron is not investigating the drug trade at all. He's actually investigating the premature death that Jim was told about in the very opening scene.
My daughter Nancy died 16 years ago of a burst appendix.
Jim begins investigating an entirely new line and quickly finds out about the yacht, but not exactly what happened. He must be getting close to the truth though, as Collier has hired a hitman.
Who's dying? A private eye, name of Rockford.
With all this tension slowly building, it's quite a shock when Jim discovers Scowron alive and well and getting sloshed at the airport.
Your latest book has no teeth.
Then you're going to be just the man to read it.
About to flush his writer's integrity away as he flees back to New York.
Jack, what did Atchison promise you?
He tells Jim the whole story, how it was never about drugs or a drug ring, but that Atchison had held a party on his father's yacht back when they were graduating, for the whole gang. He tried to force himself on the girl and accidentally shot her when she laughed at his pathetic advances, paying off Collier, Freddie Stacy and Jeannie Rosenthal with their dream lives as he went on to run his dad's newspaper empire. This story borrows heavily from a real-life incident on the yacht of William Randolph Hearst, where director Thomas Ince died of apparent natural causes, only for rumours of a shooting to circulate for years. Unlike real life, Scowron discovered the cover-up, but he's decided to give up on his big comeback novel after Atchison offered to fund a sequel to his earlier bestseller, lacking a spine or any conviction.
I think the boat's already sailed on that, Jimmy.
With Jim unable to convince Scowron not to leave for New York, he's then picked up by the hitman, but saved at the last minute by Scowron,
Jimbo!
who, inspired by this heroic act, decides to write the expose novel that he should have written in the first place.
How's it going?
It cooks, Jimmy. It really cooks.
Sort of.
Seems to be coming along fine.
This is a fantastic episode. Seemingly hamstrung by a slow start, it doesn't actually burden the story at all. It's entirely necessary that we learn about Scowron's character. the best-selling author who's a little bit Steinbeck, a little Kerouac, and a little Hemingway on the surface, but underneath only really shares their love of booze. He presents himself as this tough guy who only wants the truth, while really being a coward who wants a hit book and at the first sign of dollar bills is willing to completely drop all of his morals. I don't think we would have been sympathetic to his initial fall from grace, or angry that we were so sympathetic had the episode not spent the amount of time with him that we do. The second and third acts also don't suffer from this slow start, as the initial red herring sustains what we think is happening, and it's a real shock to find out what the story is actually about, and how it all ties together so well. All of Scowron's lies are believable until they're found out, and still push the story in the right direction, as well as motivating Jim to pursue the case and be angry at Scowron when he discovers the lies. While it was risky to drip feed us the villains of the story in the way it does, I actually thought it worked brilliantly, as the parts they all played made sense in the greater narrative, as well as in their individual scenes. All had something to lose and reacted accordingly, which was also their undoing, and the motivation for Scowron to do the right thing, which I think works so well in this episode. This was a perfectly paced, performed and plotted episode, so it's easily a 5 out of 5 for me. Thank you. Goodbye.